to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Following the usual order of our annual meeting, I would like, without objection, to make the following appointments. Recorder, Michelle Bennett. Parliamentarian, Jeremy Tucker. Timekeeper, Steve Habiger. Sergeant at Arms, Lieutenant Greg Shop. And teller, Steve Tuttle. It is a tradition every year that we present our award to the individual from Ocean Pines who has gone beyond the ordinary measures to support the recreation and the parks activities of the Pines. And to make that award, I'd like to ask Debbie Donaway to step forward. Here she comes.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
So I'm just going to kind of read over what I had submitted. So this year's Volunteer of the Year moved to Ocean Pines in 2000 and has become quite the helpful hand, not only in the Ocean Pines Recreation Department, but in our entire community. She has volunteered at all the Easter celebrations that we have as our bonnet parade commandress. Our Halloween celebration is our haunted hayride fortune teller. She helps with Reindeer Lane at Christmas, where we have gifts for the children to buy for their parents during our Breakfast with Santa event. She ran our youth chorus program in 2016, and we have called on her to sing the national anthem for a lot of our OPA, excuse me, I don't do this well, the national anthem at our OPA ribbon cuttings. The past GM, Mr. Thompson, asked her to serve on the Facilities Use Task Force, and she helped in trying to help organize fairly the facilities usage for the Ocean Pines organizations. She assisted Ocean Pines Recreation with purchasing speakers and sound systems that would best suit our needs. At present, she serves as the Assistant Chair and Secretary for the Ocean Pines 50th Anniversary Committee. And in the community, she volunteers as the following: Director of the Delmarva Chorus, Team Captain for Nancy's Angels in the Maryland-Delaware chapter of ALS Walk. She received the Walk Champion Award and Team Leadership Award for 2016. She edits and submits weekly articles to the Ocean Pines Independent newspaper on behalf of another volunteer columnist. She is the soloist of the Veterans Memorial events. This lady is a true asset to our Recreation and Parks Department. I know I can call on her for many things, and she will be right there to help as long as she's not on vacation, bless her heart. She's always willing to help me in any possible way she can, and one of the funniest, most pleasant people, excuse me, I have the pleasure to work with. I appreciate everything she does for our department, and when I asked the staff for their thoughts of the Volunteer of the Year, she was the immediate response without question. We thank her for everything she offers, and we'll continue to call on her for many of her specialties. This year's Volunteer of the Year is Ms. Carol Ludwig.
There you go. Wait, Joe, it's a picture. Why not? Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
We now ask the teller, do we have a quorum?
No, we do not.
Steve? Can you tell me how far off we are?
92.
Okay, we do not have a quorum.
Mr. Stevens,
Yes.
just a question. If you have more than one property, do you count for more than one property?
Yes.
Anybody has registered?
Yeah, if anyone, thanks, Joe. If anyone has not registered, now would be a really good time to do it.
Actually, it's
It looks like we're going to make it, so I'm just going to for a second. We have a quorum. I would now ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the annual meeting. Approval of the agenda, I'm sorry. Get that. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda? We have a motion. Do we have a second? A motion, you will be able to make a motion during new business or old business, but not now.
I have a motion.
We are following the agenda, sir.
I have a motion to amend the agenda.
Oh, you have, okay. You can take the microphone.
Probably don't need it. Need a second to look at that. For resolution
State your name,
B-3.
sir, and
Oh, excuse me. My name's Ted Arano. I live at 51 Quarterstaff Place. Mike's not on.
Gotta get it very close, Bill. Right up there now.
My name is Ted Arano. I live at 51 Quarterstaff Place, Ocean Pines, Maryland. For resolution B-03, I request that my motion to terminate Brett Hill as acting general manager be added to the agenda.
All motions, you can make a motion from the floor at the appropriate time. It cannot be added to the agenda per our bylaws. And the reason it can't be amended to the agenda is because of notification, because it must appear, if the bylaws are clear, that items to be presented before the members must be given proper notification. In other words, they'll be in the agenda when the meeting is full. You can make motions from the floor during new business or old business. I will point out that those motions from the floor are in no way binding on the board of directors. All of this has happened before.
I disagree.
You're all entitled to disagree.
I want to see, I want to see where it says that.
Well, and after the meeting.
Not after the meeting, right now.
Well,
Right now. I want to see.
sir, you are out of order.
I do not believe I'm out of order.
I believe you are.
Well, I
And
don't.
I, by the way, am presiding over this meeting.
What I was saying was, good morning, everybody. My name is Jeremy Tucker. What I was indicating was, what Dave was saying is, even if your motion could be made and added to the agenda, the item would be out of order because the power to remove the general manager rests with the board of directors. So,
No, it doesn't.
under the bylaws, it does.
Well, the bylaws got to change.
Well, that may be, but that may be, but I'm just telling you what the bylaws say. The bylaws delegate that to the board of directors. That power rests with the board of directors. So.
But this is not a question about the bylaws. You want to change the bylaws, there's provisions for how to do it, and you have to learn what they are. I had a motion and a second for the approval of the agenda. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Approval of the minutes for the annual meeting, August 13th, 2016. Do I have a motion? I do, Ted Maroney. Do I have a second? Meg, Jeff? All those in favor of approving those minutes, last year's meeting? Aye. The minutes are approved. Now we will begin the portion of the agenda for reports. Our first report will be the legal report by Jeremy Tucker.
Good morning, everybody. I guess I just introduced myself, but let me reintroduce myself. My name is Jeremy Tucker. I am one of the association's counsel. We've been working with the association since around December of this year in a variety of capacities. Since many of you have, I've met some of you, but many of you probably never seen me or heard of me before, I thought I'd give a very quick background as to who my firm is, who I am, and what I do for the association. Thank you. I work for the law firm of Lurch, Hurley & Brewer. We're about a 60-lawyer law firm. We've been around for 60 years. We are a full-service law firm. I am chair of the Community Association Practice Group. My partners practice, in addition to what I do and what my group does, we have an employment law group, we have a land use and zoning group, we do telecommunications law, we do commercial real estate, commercial lending, tax-exempt entities, corporations. So we provide a full-service law firm, which we've been, for you especially, we've been able to utilize our resources very much to address a lot of the issues that have come up in this short period of time. Just a little bit of bio about me specifically. My practice group, we represent several hundred communities around the state of Maryland, the District of Columbia, a number in Ocean City. We go throughout the entire state. We have been doing this as a group for over 30 years. I myself have served as the president of the Trade Association, the Community Association Institute, the DC chapter, which is the largest in the country. I've served on the CAI as vice chair of the Maryland LAC, which lobbies for changes and to laws on behalf of the Community Association. I guess what I'm getting at is this is what I do, this is all I do. I just represent community associations. I've done it my entire career. I started in law school as a law clerk, taking a clerkship at a law firm that did nothing like this, which is sort of how I ended up in it. What I thought we would certainly do is also go over what my partner Mike Neary also does. I'm sure I've read some articles about employment law and what we do for you there. My partner Mike Neary is one of my partner in the employment law group. He's been helping the board and the community update your employee handbook. He's given harassment trainings to all of the full and part-time staff, which has been very good, and we've been addressing the issues that come up from time to time with employment matters. We've also been handling your collections, which is your unpaid collections, run for unpaid assessments and related charges. I actually have some good news, which is great. To date, in the 7 months we've been doing this, we've collected $107,000 for you all, which is considerable considering we have $900 a month assessments. So we're very pleased by that approach. We've only just begun our collection work on your behalf. So we haven't had to even go to court yet, and so we've been very successful at leveraging our procedures and our policies, and the board has been behind us in how we are pursuing this. Just so you all know, our strategy in collections is we are very diligent, we are very hard, and we are very uncompromising in what we do. We will work with people who want to work with us and with the consent of the board, but our job is, in this capacity, is to collect money from the people who don't pay, so you all who do pay are not subsidizing them and subsidizing the services that they do. And we take that role of our very, very seriously. That is your lifeblood and what pays for everything. The adult pool issue I wanted to address very briefly, and I know that's been a hot button item. We continue to look at and try to find options how to address those concerns that have been raised. I make no promises as to what will end up happening, but I will be advising the new board as to what we've discovered and what we think, what the costs are, what the risks are. I understand, and I can tell you from my perspective, when we were looking at this issue, we understood very much what that adult pool meant to many of the community members, and we thoroughly spent a lot of time, and we continue to spend a lot of effort trying to figure out ways to accomplish what many want. And so we continue to look at that. The last part of my job, very quickly, is that we do day-to-day general counsel work for you all. We work with the board, dealing with board issues that come up, contract reviews, all of those general matters that come up. Hopefully you'll see me a lot more. You'll certainly see my name hopefully a lot more. My family has a place about 8 miles up the street, so I'm here a lot. If anybody has any questions after the meeting, please feel free to come up to me. I'll be here for a little while after the meeting. Thank you all very much. I look forward to getting to know many of you.
Okay, well, I have the financial report from John Viola.
Thank you, David. Good morning, everybody. Obviously, my name is Joe Viola. I'm the lead finance person. And today I want to talk to you about the financial results for the past year. The best way, I believe, to approach it is let's do a comparison of our operating fund actual results to our budget, as well as prior year. Let's talk about our assessment, the assessment dollars, our budget, compared to what actually happened by amenity, by department. The operating fund performance history, show you a little bit about that. Capital assets and accumulated depreciation, the assets that we have. Reserve accounts that I know you read about, you hear about, we'll talk about that. And also, I just want to talk to you about this year. As you know, we have new auditors, SCNH, and they will be presenting right after me. But they're appointed on a year-to-year basis. The board believed that we needed a further evaluation and deeper dive review with the handoff from the prior auditors. Can you all hear me okay with this? Yeah. I'm sorry?
You're too close.
Too close? Okay, yeah. All right, thank you. Yes, all right, so with that, let's start.
Now you're too far away.
Okay, so on this slide, what we did was we're comparing the actual to the budget. We're breaking it out from your assessment revenue, and you can see there that we had approximately a $26,000 variance, which was due to the coastal hospice full year, which we didn't plan for in the budget. So, I'm sorry? Okay. So next is the operating department's police and fire, where we were basically, flush with budget. But what I want to point out here is that when you look at your dollars and what we spend in our assessment and all that, basically 32% of our assessment goes for police and fire. Okay? So that's the 1.7. And then you have public works and maintenance CPI, which is around 1.8 million. Again, probably about a third of our assessment goes to that. So 2/3 of our dollars goes to support those four main departments. Recreation and parks, we did have a variance there. And then basically the variance that we had there of 232,000 was made up of bad debts. We had an increase in bad debts from what we budgeted, along with some IT, finance, and some marketing expenses that we had. So we did have increases in some payroll there. All right? So that's your total operating. Then we had the amenities. The amenities was 254,000, and that was mostly due to the yacht club. And I have a separate slide behind that. I'll give you more detail, but that was mostly the yacht club. So new capital, we did have a slight variance there. more or less on the new capital. We did do work at the yacht club, as you all know, the bar. All that, some of that was not in the budget, and I believe we talked about that. So that was mostly due to some work at the yacht club with the bar and the furniture. So that brings us down to the bottom number, where we had a $369,000 difference from budget, expense over budget, and that's pretty much where the detail was on that. Okay? So the next page is the detail, like I mentioned, to the $254,000 before, which was one of the big variances on the amenities. That was mostly the golf course, which was revenues were down approximately $50,000 from budget, and then there was some offset to expense savings. And then the yacht club, the revenue was down $328,000. Wages were down also, but supplies were up. So that was the biggest part, obviously, of that variance on the amenities. All right? So that takes care of the actual versus the budget. So next, the next slide, I always believe it's good, even though we compared when we did the budget review in January, we reviewed it to the prior year. I just want to touch base on it because there was a change, there was a shift. I want to highlight that to everybody so you can see where it happened. But again, so here we have actual versus prior year. You can see the difference. One of the biggest differences is in that other category, the 314. That was mostly due to, we had a difference in Sandpiper income, where in 2017, we did not, it decreased to $145,000. So that was a big part of that difference, along with new hires of around $110,000 and some legal fees and accounting fees that increased. So that's the biggest part of your difference there on the amenities. Now, obviously, I want to focus down on the bottom number, and that's why I thought it was important to compare it to the prior year. So you see, in 2016, the Homeowners Association, we actually had a favorable revenue over expense, whereas this past year we had just the opposite. So the difference was a decrease of $679,000 year over year. If you remember when we did the budget, or the whole budget review happened back in January, a big part of the budget versus the prior year was there was an increase in payroll, an increase in new hires. So a big part of that $679,000 is the salary increase for those new people that we hired. Most of that was to do work on the amenities. Okay? We also had an increase in bad debts reserve. You heard Jeremy talk about how they are collecting improvement this year, so I'm hoping that we won't have that in the current year. We should be properly reserved. Okay, so the next slide is the detail to the $258,000, and it breaks out, but I pretty much covered that, what the differences were for that. Okay, so the next slide is where what we tried to do, what we did do, is break out your $921 assessment and break it out. Where did those dollars go by item? And I think this is a really good schedule for you all to see. So you can see in the budget for police, fire, and EMS, $200 in the budget, $204 was for out of your 921 went towards that. So that's how this schedule works. So you can see it for budget, actual, in the prior year. Basically, it's straightforward for what I talked to you on the prior two schedules. But you come down and you can see at the bottom, whereas the budget was the 921. That's what we paid, but our cost per assessments per homeowner for this year came out to $965, and in the prior year, 2016, it was $884. And that kind of ties into those numbers I showed you before, the $369,000 last year, this year, and again, the income over expenses the year before. So that ties it all in. It gives it to you dollar by dollar, line item, so you can see where that goes. Okay, so the next schedule again, just to give you more detail on that as far as you break out one of the biggest numbers on the prior page and where that assessment dollars went to. So then, this next slide is on the amenities. I know we focused on that. So I wanted to give you a breakout there where the dollars went for budget, 2017 actual, and then versus the prior year. And we can get an idea there where the revenue is versus the expense. Again, breaking it out by amenity. And what was the cost and what was favorable. Okay? The next slide is more or less the history or an operating fund performance history from basically 2007 to 2017. I thought this was important for us to see basically how it's more or less a scorecard over the years, and also put into perspective of what happened the last 2 years here and where we're at. So, from 2007 to 2009, the number was 499. You see 2013, we had 441. But what's important here is we did accumulate losses up until a couple of years ago, and then we all know about that operating deficit recovery fund that we all put in X amount of our assessment to cover. Well, that's where those dollars went. When we look at the history here over the years, we were kind of in a negative balance, and that operating budget deficit fund covered that, and that's how we covered it. And that brought us pretty much flush up until this past year, where we have the $369,000. So that's something that's obviously would have to be addressed by the new board on what approach to take on that. So the approach we took in the past was that deficit recovery fund. Obviously, something like that now may have to be addressed over the next 2 years. All righty? So I just wanted to point that out to everybody, get a history on it. I think that's important for all of us. So the next slide is, okay, so where are we? We pay $921 a year in our assessment. And we've paid that. There's been no increase in the last 3 years. So I went back to 2015, where it was $909. So if you look on this schedule, from 2015 to the current year, we've only had a $7 increase in our assessment. And if you just look at that, it's less than a 1% increase in our assessments over the last 4 years. So that kind of puts it all in perspective for everybody, I hope. Yes? All right, I just have 1 or 2 more slides, and then, believe me, I want to answer all your questions. So the next slide, obviously, with any homeowners association, our assets, our capital, our amenities. So I just wanted to break that out. All this information, you did get 2 handouts. You got a blue handout, right, and a green handout. So one of them has the financial, kind of a summary or the financial reports out of our annual report. The other one, I think it's the green one, has schedules that actually pretty much encompass what I've presented today. So you can have a picture, whether you're at home or whatever. If you ever want to give me a call, that's fine if you have a question or an email. So on this one, it just show you where our assets are and what our net book value is after accumulated depreciation. Okay? Good. I just have 1 or 2 more slides. So next one, obviously, reserves account. We are fund accounting. In fact, Gene Ringsdorf, I don't think he's here today, but he asked me to point out to everybody, so I'll do it on his behalf, that we are a homeowners association. We are on the fund accounting method. Basically, you have funds, and we have mainly 3 funds. So he felt that was important to tell all of you. So that's anything I can talk to anybody afterwards if they want more detail. So here we are basically on our reserves. So our reserves, the balance at 4/30/2017 is $5.4 million. That's what we have in reserves to cover major maintenance and replacement, bulkheads, and your roads. So that's all there. And then what I tried to do is get a perspective on where we will be in 2018, because obviously we've collected all our assessments. We collect them basically in May. So we bring in all the cash
Now, that cash is there, so if you look at a balance sheet in May or June and you see all this cash, and maybe the number's 11 million or whatever, we still have to fund our operations for the rest of the year. So I tried to give you a perspective of what the projected balance would be at 4/30/18. So I think this is a good schedule to kind of bridge that gap. If you're looking at a balance sheet, which is a point in time today, and you see that cash, because we basically get all our assessments at the beginning of the year. Okay? Okay, so I see the next slide is questions. So anybody have any questions? That gentleman there. He was first.
John, one thing that when you reviewed the slides, I don't think you mentioned was the fact that the amenities number in total is not a cost. Our revenues exceed our expenses, and so the brackets that you saw in those numbers for the amenities, $58 of your assessment, that's a benefit of $58 to your assessment. By virtue of all 7 amenities together, we are profitable with respect to those 7 amenities, and that's what that bracket meant on there. So you've got beach parking produces $43 decrease in your assessment, marinas $19 decrease in your assessment, and the beach club $16 decrease in your assessment. So I don't think you mentioned that, John. I think that's awfully important, that in aggregate, the amenities are profitable.
Hold the phone, folks. Everybody's getting flooded out. You assholes are worried about French fries at the yacht club. People's homes are getting flooded out there. I'm sick of it. Shut up. No way. I'm sick of it. No, I try to deal with it, and nobody listens. No, I'm not taking my turn. No way. Let's go. There's people getting flooded.
It's raining. It's raining. It's raining.
Wow. I thought it was coming right at me. I didn't think the presentation was that bad. I knew the numbers were. Okay. All right. Okay, so I know. So anyway, that's a good point on. Okay, come on, please. All right, so, Pete, thank you. And actually, it's funny, in every budget meeting when I was on the chair, I always pointed that out, and I always looked for that to see that. So, right, if you take the amenities overall for our premier resort, they really are, they've been in a positive all the time. And we all, most of that is, beach parking, the beach club, a few others. So, it's a good point. Sir, I think you had a question? You don't have a question? Oh, never mind. Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
What is the legacy plan, 5-year funding?
So the legacy plan, when it says the 5-year funding was, when I mentioned before that we had that operating deficit over so many years, the prior board or in the budget process implemented this 5-year plan. That part of your assessment went to offset those losses that had accumulated over the years. So that was it. Yeah, Dave was part of it, so Dave jumped in.
If I may, before Pete does. Yeah. In fairness, John wasn't here. Yeah. I'm answering this question. That was, the legacy fund was something that was created back in 2010, and good for me. It was basically created because our major assets, our facilities, were basically funded by components, that is the depreciation on individual components. It did not take into account that the price that we paid for a yacht club back in 19 whenever is not the yacht club price today. And the disparity between between what we actually were collecting in the reserves and the price to build a new facility was considerable and had to be made up. And that's what the legacy fund was. It was, remember, well, Pete coming in and saying we need another $1.2 million in the assessments, and I'm saying no way, no how, not until I get out of here. But what we did do is we had a gradual increase in assessments going into the legacy fund, which built up, and this was our 5-year plan. So that's basically what the legacy was for, to make up what perceived shortfalls were for our major facilities. Did I get that about right, Pete? Go ahead.
That was pretty good, Dave, but I'd like to add to it if I may.
Sure.
Okay. Dave, I was not then on the board. I was on the Budget Finance Committee. And this gentleman right here was on the board and asked me to step in. The board really has, the issue was simply this, and Dave is not wrong in anything he said. But the basic issue was this. This community center, the building that we are now, and we're not being flooded, by the way. In any event, we were in a situation where the commitment had been made and the construction was underway for this building. It was $1.75 million. Scaled back, as you may, some of you have been around, it was about a $5 million original plan, which was approved. Bottom line was 1.75. The issue was this that the board was facing, and that was that the reserve funds, the replacement reserve fund, with the expenditure of $1.75 million for this building, would have brought the balance down to about $2 million. And the board considered that to be very inadequate, particularly since major infrastructure needs existed. There was a plan to spend several millions of dollars in the next few years, and we didn't have enough reserves. So the question was, what do we do about it? Well, there were 3 options. 1, to borrow money. 2, to have special assessments, big assessments to cover the costs. Or the third, to put into place a plan that gradually raised, as Dave said, the assessment over a period of years. That period was chosen to be a 5-year period of increases, and many of you will recall that that 5-year plan called for $30 a year in increases over 5 years, and then stop it and freeze it at that level until such time as the need was no longer there or some different amount was necessary. So, I always have attributed to Dave the political wisdom to do it the way it was done. Pete, me, calculated an amount necessary to increase the dues one time and keep that in place for a period of years. Dave said, no, 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 no. He was on the board, I wasn't. But wisely, Dave suggested that we raise the same amount of dollars necessary over a period of years. And he said, Pete, calculate what it would represent over a 5-year period of gradual increases, which were predictable and fair to the membership. That number was $30 per year, capping after 5 years at $150. John Viola explained in his answer to the question the part that went to cover the operating deficit recovery. And that part was $4 of the $30 increase. The other component was $26 for physical facilities. The $4 component, and I'll wrap it up here in a second, but the $4 component was simply to erase a $500,000 deficit, operating fund deficit that occurred by losses in the 3 previous years. That's particularly relevant today because we're now coming up on a situation where with the loss this year, perhaps an additional loss the year we're in now, we may face the same situation, and John alluded to that in his comments. So we are going to be probably back in the $500,000 plus negative territory, and the board, the newly constituted board, whoever those people are, will have to address that in the budget process. So, summary, that plan raised, for the capital purposes, $7 million during the 9 years of its existence. $7 million of your assessments, which have gone up very modestly over a period of years, produced $7 million to put into the fund for the capital, built the yacht club and other things. So That's a long answer, but it's a very important question that was asked, and I'm glad it was. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, John had mentioned this before. With respect to the operating loss, okay, the thing to know, and I think it was on John's slide, it's hard to follow these things, but that's not an unusual circumstance, nor is the operating loss that we're facing this year the largest one that we've had. Well, we have operating losses in each year because of unforeseen circumstances that were unbudgeted, and it happens. I mean, it happens every place. In one case, I can go back in history and say we had an unforeseen circumstance that the state, who was regularly funding us to, I think, the tune of, I don't know, $500,000 a year, decided not to fund us for $500,000 a year. Yet we had already budgeted for it. So we had a loss. These things, and there is no way to avoid them. And by the way, one way, if you have a loss one year, it's possible that you can have a gain in the following year. I know you're shaking your head and you don't understand, but I'd be happy to sit down. I can happy to show you the numbers. I mean, it's fairly easy. Now, what happens, or what can happen, the choices the board has, sometimes they can ignore it and say, well, maybe next year we'll have a surplus. And they've done that. Other times, they say, wait a second, the deficit's getting too big, therefore, let us fund the deficit. How do you fund it? Well, you adjust the budget such that you might put less money into the reserves account. However, or you might increase the assessment. All of those things are possible at budget time. And they're not unusual, and they're not hard, and it's just as regular as death and taxes. Anybody else?
If we're losing so much money in all these different places, isn't it time for new management? Like the yacht club was losing a lot of money. I went there, I brought my family there. I was embarrassed. The food was awful. The food was just awful.
Yeah, different question. That's not a financial question. And losses, we have had losses in the yacht club every year since I've been here. And if I could, every year, and if I could answer that question, then you should make me God, because I don't know how else to do it. Are you done?
Okay, so on the finance side, any other questions? Or?
I do have a question. When you say the yacht club and the food is not part of the budget, we used to go and spend a lot of money there. The food is awful. My husband's refused to go anymore. My name is Debbie Malone, and I'm at 65 Martinique Circle. We used to go a lot. We used to go to the yacht club pool and all of that. We used to go to the beach club. We had bills at the beach club that was $600 some days. We have been once this year, and it was atrocious. I went back the second time, and I won't go back again. And that's impacting the budget. That's dollars you're losing. That's revenue.
Oh, two parts, you are right. It obviously affects finance, and it does affect the budget. I totally agree on that. As far as the food and all that, I know the AGM is going to be speaking right after me. That would be something he would be discussing. But from a finance standpoint, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. But again, I'm just the finance part here. Yes.
I have two questions. One is that when we talked about the assessments, we pay $921.
Yes.
Okay. That does not, thank you, include, I think I should speak for everyone, but that's okay. The waterfront. You did not take into consideration all of the $1,400 people. And so I didn't see that in your numbers. Number one. Number two, several meetings ago, when we did a meet and greet of the candidates, they spoke to a $8 million reserve, not 5. So how did we do 3 and 4 years ago?
Yeah, no, so very very good question. So you're right, the 921 does not reflect the bulkhead. I didn't include that. Next time I will, I'll have a separate note for that. But it did, the 921 assessment does not. If you are somebody with a bulkhead, it's more. You're right. The second was, you mentioned a reserve, or you mentioned that you've heard $8 million. If we just scroll back to my slide was as of a point in time, which was April 30th, 2017. That was what we had. That's what is on the financials. Now, when you heard the 8 million, if you go back to, actually, to be honest with you, I mean, the person who, that says that, those are questions for them when they bring it up and compare it to the financial statements. So we do have more than 5 million now, which is the slide. Perfect. So that's why I had this slide in there. Thank you for putting it up. So I'm trying to show you, we may have that now, but there are expenditures that have been budgeted and planned for that will take from that money. So that's why I thought it was important to show you at 4:30, point in time, here's where we were. Remember I told you all your assessments come in May, right? So money goes up because we pay up front, but we have to pay for 12 months. So I tried to give you the projected additions and expenditures that the board has already approved or what's needed, and where we probably would be at the end of the year. So when you do hear that, 28 million, if somebody says it, I'm not sure who did, bring that up or email me. But from a finance standpoint, here's where we are today, based upon everything that we see or that's been projected from the board or approved. That's where I believe, as a point in time right now, we would be at the end of the year. Now, again, it's an estimate. Could change either way. I see that gentleman over there with his hand up.
Pete Comstock, real quick. The $8 million is the total of the 5 and the 3 is John. John explained earlier that all of the revenue comes in on day one for all the assessments, including putting it in a big reserve pot, and then you spend it throughout the year. But the other thing I wanted to point out is that the $8 million, it's only $6 million for the major maintenance and replacement reserve. The other reserve, almost $2 million, is the bulkheads, and that's what the woman was suggesting. Those bulkhead, they pay into that fund, and from that fund is withdrawn the bulkhead repairs and replacements, period. So what's available for the community, if you will, is not 8 million, but 6, and of that 6, it's going to get down throughout the course of the year as we spend the money. Thank you.
Excellent question. I got to be honest with you. That's a question you should always ask when somebody brings up numbers like that.
I think what the bulkhead people would like to know is where is that money going?
Good question.
Okay. That's excellent. Again, excellent question. I'm going to call in the people that are making those decisions right now.
Sitting there somewhere.
Confessing up front my lack of, we don't have a bulkhead. It's not the one thing I paid most attention to, but where does the money go? I mean, I can look at the financials every year, and if you look at every year, if you look at the budget, you look at the reserve account, all of the money that's collected from your assessment, your bulkhead addition to the assessment, goes into a specific reserve fund. It's in the reserve fund, and what it is used, as I understand it, over the years, we have had a bulkhead replacement plan. Each year, we do a certain segment of the bulkheads, and we then go to the next segment and to the next segment. So the money is continually spent that goes into and it's not spent on anything else, it's spent only on bulkheads. This past year, I'm getting ahead of myself, I was going to mention that, but basically this year, we sort of took we did not go back into the general rotational replacement plan, but rather did spot replacements and spot fixes over the period of the year. We have just recently led a contract for the start continuing that replacement program. And the contractor's been selected, and the work will start this year.
I'm saying the bulkhead people would appreciate knowing exactly where the money is going.
Well,
I've been here 30 years and I have not been in the rotation yet.
That's something that you have to deal with Public Works. I can't answer that. But I would like to move along, if we may, and to our auditors. If you're done, John.
Yeah, if there isn't any other questions for finance?
Finance question?
I got one question. It used to get outside funds we used to get outside funds from the state and whatever for roads, EMS or fire, police, whatever.
Yes, we did.
Why are we not getting any more funds?
Well, I can't even say ask the governor because he's not there anymore. It was a preceding governor. But we do get casino funds, though, and they have been dedicated to roads.
The number I gave you was just our assessments, the 921, but we do get the casino funds.
I know at one time we got like 400 grand for roads and bridges. Do we still get that?
No. This year, if you look at the casino impact fund, I believe it's about $340,000 is coming to us from the state. That's a direct tie to the revenues associated with the casinos in the state of Maryland. We get 10% of the funds generated out of Ocean Downs. So we do get the casino funds, and that supplements their bridges and roads. Because of how the fire department EMS was split out years ago, the fire department EMS funds are given directly to Ocean Pines Volunteer Fire Department as an independent corporation. They receive approximately $500,000 a year from Worcester County to fund their operations. Their funding mechanism is from three sources. The first source is their billing. All EMS services are billed back through insurance, and the portion of those collectible funds go directly into the first part of the bottom line of fire and EMS, and that's about $500,000 a year. The second part of fire and EMS funding comes from Worcester County funds, and this year Worcester County has funded approximately $500,000 to fire and EMS. The remaining portion, which shows up in the Ocean Pines budget, is the portion that is left over. And Ocean Pines has the obligation to fund fire and EMS to whatever that cost is. And we're fortunate that we have Worcester County funding, it's about $500,000, and then the medical billing that they're able to get off people's insurance for all of the EMS runs, that also covers a large chunk. So we're only paying that leftover balance. As far as the police department, Worcester County does fund us directly on the police department, and that also adds up to about $500,000 in funding we get on an annual basis from Worcester County to directly go to the bottom line of our police department. So that funding does still exist. It might just be coming in a different way than it has in the past, and the latest impact of that was the casino.
I see a hand in the back. Colette?
Yes, I have two questions. One might be for Jeremy Tucker. What is the cost of the collections, that 100K?
I'm sorry, would you?
What is the cost of the collections that Mr. Tucker talked about, the 100K that was collected? Can you tell us that?
They're billed directly to the homeowner. There's no,
we collect it from, we bill the association, I'm sure you can't hear me. We bill the association and then we collect those fees from the homeowners, but I think from today's date, we probably billed somewhere around $40,000, give or take. But we've collected all that back already from those owners. And the amount of fees that we've spent are, so the way it works in process is most of the fees come at the beginning when you do the notice of intent to lien, the lien, and the filing of the lawsuits. So most of your fees for this year have already been expended. And so now we're just collecting back on that. So we expect to continue to increase on that. We've held off, I guess I don't really want to say this, but everybody may be delinquent, but we're not proceeding at the moment with 2,000 for people who remain delinquent or currently delinquent. We're not filing new liens for this year to cut fees. We're going to file them next year, which gives us a 2-year, you have 2 years to file a lien back. So that's how we're sort of controlling costs on that end.
And so all the costs are really coming out of the people who pay the delinquent fees?
Yes.
Okay. And then a question I have for Mr. Viola. There is a line here that is called current year fixed asset additions. 174K comes out of operations, and 3.5 million come out of reserve funds. Can you explain, how are we taking funds out of fixed-year assets, for fixed-year assets out of the operating fund? I thought those all came out of the reserves. The schedule I'm referring to.
I'm sorry, I was just looking for this. So there is two types of funding. If I heard it right, I'm sorry.
You want to use the mic.
So if I heard it right, I was just trying to find the schedule, but there's two types of funding. One is if you have new capital. New capital would not be coming out of a reserve fund, but if we replace something that is already there, then that would come out of the replacement reserve. So there's two types of fund, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if I can, I'd like to move on to our auditor's report. And let me introduce Paul Schifrin and Megan Saxon, if I pronounced that correctly.
Good morning. My name's Paul Schifrin. I was the partner for the audit engagement. The firm, not close enough. The firm this year, I work for SC&H Group. This is the first year that we were hired to do the audit. We've been around since 1991. We're a full-service audit, accounting, and consulting firm, about 250 people. We have a large focus on not-for-profits. We do many not-for-profits, both from the audit and the tax side. And so we were brought in to do the audit. The way the audit works, obviously, John and his team are responsible for the financial statements, and he just went through those. What we produce is about a 44, 45-page document. As I said, the numbers themselves, the balance sheet, the P&Ls, those all come from the numbers that John and his team put together. Our task is to perform tests and procedures over those numbers to give some assurance that they are materially correct. So what we do is come in on a sample basis through a lot of the populations of the numbers that run through the different accounts. We performed our tests and our procedures. What we add to this report is the first couple of pages, which is the auditor's opinion. It's got some different sections to it. Basically, one, it does say that management is responsible for the numbers, and then it says that we are responsible for doing the testing of those numbers. The most important thing, I think, to note for this group is that we gave an unqualified opinion, which is a clean opinion, which means that the numbers were not materially misstated. In doing our procedures, we did have some adjustments that we did find to the numbers. So when we say it was unqualified, it's after those adjustments were made, that they are all run through management, and management did agree with the changes to be made to the financial statements. So those were made, and then the financial statements are produced for external form, and it adds our opinion onto the front. After the couple of schedules, the balance sheet, the P&L, the cash flow, there's about 8 or 9 pages worth of footnotes. The majority of that, footnote number 1 to there, just goes through the policies and procedures of the accounting and the finance department, of how those numbers were arrived at. There were no material changes to the way that the policies and procedures worked from year to year. And then there's a large supplemental schedules in the back, which John really went into in detail, where we just kind of showed the revenues and the expenses and the net kind of bottom line per each of the departments. And as you know, there are probably 17, 18 different departments that are being kept on individual profit and loss statements. So those go in the back. And then there's one final page which does actually talk about the reserves in the future, the amount of money, and obviously that's been pretty well covered today. That's actually an unaudited schedule. We don't put our name to that, which is just typical. It's a required schedule for homeowners associations, so it's in the back. So it's in the report, but not actually covered by our audit. So we were out here for a couple of weeks to do all of our procedures. You know, in that time, constant communication with both management and also with the board of directors. Unfortunately, Pat's not here today, but Pat Supek was my main contact on the board. You know, they asked us to go in a couple of different directions to take some deeper dives, which again, I think somebody had mentioned earlier on. So we did do some additional procedures around the fixed assets, made sure to go out and really kind of count golf carts and mowers and things like that, kind of larger dollar items which might be susceptible to leaving the premises. We didn't find that any did. They're all there, so please enjoy your golf carts and your mowers. But, you know, there were some additional procedures which we were asked to do, and we did. As I said, that's the, you know, the report and that we produce after the procedures that we accomplish. The other document which is kind of in the works is there is what we call a management comment letter, which talks about the internal controls of the operations, a very important part of it. And we'll say that that document is currently under review. We have produced the document. Management and the board has that. We always give them a chance to respond to those comments, which really means that they're, we say what our finding was, if we had one, what our recommendation is, and then we let management add to that in the actual letter itself, saying here's their response, whether it be we disagree or we agree and we're going to implement it, or here's just the current situation. So that's kind of where we are. I'll be around afterwards too if anybody has any questions.
I have an announcement. Somebody dropped a key case to an Infinity. I checked, it's not mine. No, it looks exactly the same. And I will leave it at this table over here. And if you want to check your pockets, I think you can store it with the inner key, and maybe that's what was happening there. All right. Before I start, I'd like to recognize some people who, in my opinion, have contributed significantly to the welfare of Ocean Pines. First, Glenn Duffy. I want to thank Glenn Duffy, who is retired as chair and longstanding member of the Architectural Review Committee. Glenn was elected to the board in 2004, and I believe was appointed president in 2005. Upon the resignation of General Manager Dave Ferguson, Glenn, in the manner of Brett Hill, assumed the interim GM responsibility without compensation until the next GM was hired. On behalf of the association, thank you, Glenn. I also want to acknowledge Tom Herrick for the great job he did as president and liaison and primary support to Brett Hill. Thank you, Tom, and we wish you well for your next term on the board. Brett Hill. I venture to say that no one in Ocean Pines' 50-year history has, over the single year, sacrificed personal, family, and business life to the extent that Brett Hill has done. When he agreed to take the job, he had no idea that the search for a new general manager would take so long. I want to thank Brett on behalf of the Ocean Pines Association for the countless unpaid hours that he has put in on our behalf. So what happened since the last annual meeting? We hired a new general manager and a new CFO. While we realized that we were in for a difficult search for a general manager, we did not know that we would also be looking for a replacement for a controller who had been with us for over 30 years. This added time and extra consideration to the overall process, since the board realized, with the growth in Ocean Pines, we need somebody who could also serve as an assistant to the GM, to say a CFO, as Chief Financial Officer. Fortunately, we were able to find qualified candidates through an RFP release and hired one at the beginning of the year. The GM search took far longer than anybody on the board could have imagined. It started with the competitive selection of a search firm who commenced one of the most thorough, exhaustive searches I have ever experienced. Over 100 candidates applied, and the finalists had 2 days of interviews with the board and a meet and greet with all of our senior staff. We believe that in the end it was worth the effort, and that John Bailey will be a great fit for Ocean Pines. Facility maintenance and improvement. Soon after the last meeting, this board faced serious and in some cases unexpected issues with all 5 of our major facilities. They stem from various causes, including lack of maintenance, construction flaws, the need for expansion, and plain old age. Beach club bathrooms have been a sore point with residents for as long as I can remember. Now they've been remodeled under a contract that was completed on time and under budget. It was done such that we can meet the new season. Continuing water leakage in the country club caused health-threatening mold conditions that required immediate attention and remediation. The scope of the required repairs to the roof and the extreme age of the interior equipment and the basics, coupled to the basic soundness of the structure, convinced the board that a renovation was the most cost-efficient approach to a medium to long-term solution for the country club. Work on the first floor greatly improved the attractiveness and utility of the turn grill and was performed at relatively low cost by our Public Works Department. The design phase for the second floor is nearly complete and will be up to the next board to decide how construction will proceed. When completed, the country club's second floor will provide additional office meeting space that will allow the police area in the administration building to be significantly expanded. It will also serve as a food and beverage venue, as it has been in the past, but with a much smaller footprint. An immediate issue with the Cove was the really unpleasant smell emanating from the restrooms. A team of plumbers was assigned, spent over a day before they determined that it was due to several construction errors. A second issue was the general ambience or the lack thereof. Again, with the help of Public Works, major changes were made to the interior to change it into the welcoming community gathering place it was always intended to be. So please. In the community center, where we are, the gym floor was badly buckling from water damage. Its replacement as an improved floor is suited to a wider range of sports than was originally put in. Floor plans for the administration renovation have been presented to the board. Chief Massey has been waiting for this expansion for quite a while now, and it should happen this year. But first, we need a place to move the people that are there, and that is why getting the second floor of the country club done is so important. We completed long-standing infrastructure projects. The bridges on Ocean Parkway and Clubhouse Drive are completed and should last us a long time. This project was started under the last board. However, we still face some significant issues, and what should have been an 8-week project took 9 months. We found our way past the issues, however, and thanking the county for their help in doing so. Bulkheads, somebody we already talked about that. Bulkhead work was limited to repairs this year in the areas that most needed it. However, the board has released an RFP. We've selected a contractor, High Tide, and we believe we're moving to a better long-term solution for the bulkheads. We improved our playgrounds, and we made them safer. We replaced the playground at Michaelin Meadows with an unbudgeted emergency action. We had to do it. I think most will agree that who've been to Michaelin Meadows that it's a pretty popular improvement. We also replaced the playground at Huntington Park and converted the adjacent area into a soccer field. We completed 8 pickleball courts, started by the last board, by repurposing 2 tennis courts. And 2 new platform tennis courts, yay, will be complete by early fall. Looking into the future, we established 2 working groups. One, the IT working group, was formed as part of a concerted effort to address the huge shortfalls in our overall IT infrastructure. The issues addressed range from antiquated hardware, incompatible software, and poor connectivity between facilities. Faster, more reliable exchange of information will greatly improve the member experience in interacting with the association. The Reserve Capital Planning Working Group, the immediate goal of this group is to revise, with the assistance of DMA, the reserve study prepared by DMA in May of 2016. The basis for this revision will be accurate reserve fund balances, planned near-term capital expenditures, and the current asset list. For example, many of the assets listed in that dated study have already been accomplished. Bridges are in that asset list, but the bridges are done. And the money that was spent on them has been spent. Knowing what our reserve balances should be and what we need to contribute each year will have a direct impact on our assessments. And we believe we can, working with DMA, giving them the more accurate information, that the new updated study will give us a good start for that. And lastly, I sincerely want to wish the new board every success. I think OPA is on the right track and will continue to get better. And since this is the last of my 9 years on the board, I want to thank everyone who has helped and encouraged me along the way. Thank you.
So Dave gave a pretty good outline of a lot of the larger projects that were at the board level over the last year. But there was actually a lot of other activity at the operational level that fell into my hands trying to fill the role as the general manager. In going through the budget, this year brought us a lot of changes in membership. And this year, the board took a big change in the position for non-owner memberships in moving to an associate fee and leveling out to one straight membership fee across all of our amenities. And that was a very positive change. And the only complaints have come out of a few Delaware residents who are upset about paying more money to use the facilities that we all subsidize. The Beach Club membership was restructured, and despite the initial shock of a new program there, has rendered a positive benefit to the bottom line. Additional golf memberships have been offered, and at the 30-60-90 program, the 30-60 program for limited golf has been very well received. With, at the end of the day, a positive revenue increase in the membership bottom line. As of the end of July, we were up $63,000 out of our memberships, and that comes back to the solutions that we as a board work to get through. In our food and beverage operation, I know it's faced a lot of challenges, and we both out of my office and the GM and as a board have had a lot of hard discussions there on the ways to work, and it's still been a challenge going through this season. The positive one was we made a lot of great changes to the assets themselves and looking at the renovations at the Cove, looking at what we're doing at the Turn Grown at the Beach Club, and we've set the footprint for at least the facilities to yield us a positive result. And we did move to expanded and fixed hours at all establishments. Now last summer you could roll up to the Cove and it would be closing at 8:30. This year there's consistent hours. It's open the same hours every day. The bartenders are there serving every night, and we are getting the community members coming in 9, 10 o'clock in the evening for a nightcap, and we're using the facility, which is the most important thing, and why we spent $5 million to build it. Dave mentioned IT and our needs for a lot of upgrades. I did move to hire a full-time IT professional. This has been a position that was void for almost 5 years and really left us behind the curve in technology. The IT team has been working aggressively to upgrade our systems, to get the core infrastructure to the point where we do have communications between all of our facilities, to analyze our software needs and find ways to better improve the customer experience. And so far they have been able to successfully deploy a core routing plan through our buildings, a Wi-Fi network for all of our employees, and they've rolled out new PCs for about half of the employees in here, working through the summer, and as we go out of our busy season, finishing out the rest. They're working with the technology work group and looking at the software. Our core software that runs the back end of Ocean Pines is almost 30 years old. It dates back to a IBM green screen. If you're in the technology area, yeah, you know how old it is. And it's been something that we put Band-Aids on, and we've tried to improve the front end side of that application for our employees, but in John's department, half of his employees are still working out of that green screen interface, and that's just, you know, not a place we need to be as an association. And the board stepped up in providing a working group, and I've worked with an in-house staff team now to help implement the changes necessary to bring us into the 21st century here as far as technology goes. At our golf course, we had a significant change this year in bringing operations back in-house. We, as a board, brought extensive improvements to the facilities with the upgrades to the clubhouse. We've also done some repairs on the cart barn to keep that facility in use for us. And then to the course itself, when Andre took over as superintendent, he went through and did a full evaluation of the course and its conditions. There were a lot of areas that needed improvement. He's done significant drainage work on holes 8 and 9. A whole lot of man hours went into improving our bunkers. And we're at the point now where I think today is probably the best demonstration. You're going to go out and see that the course drained off really well. The drainage ditches around the course are actually containing water, which is where the water is supposed to get to after a rainfall. And the playing conditions on that course have been, I'm not a golfer, but from what I'm hearing from the golfers, they're the best they've been in a very long time here if ever. And so we as a team, have done a really good job there, from the board supporting the transition to the operational staff, John, Andre, and all the people that work over here at the course, and really bring that facility up, the course conditions, to something that's one of the best in the area. When we came into that facility over the winter, we found that we had a lot of assets that were in poor condition. Various reasons through budget cuts, the attention to everything wasn't necessarily given as needed to be. The board made some wise decisions in going into replacement reserves and modernizing some of our maintenance fleet. Additionally, Andre and Matt went through, and when they came in, there were almost 60 pieces of equipment that were in some need of repair. They repaired all that equipment. We are back to having our own aeration equipment in-house and working. Last year, the board had subcontracted aeration because we didn't have working equipment here to do it. We repaired that equipment, and I believe in a week and a half, Monday and Tuesday, the 21st and 22nd, I believe, is scheduled for aeration on the course, and we'll actually be able to do that ourselves with our in-house equipment and our in-house staff. Save the association money on that and keeping the course in the best condition possible for playing. And you know, if you haven't been out on the course yet, highly encourage you to go out, play a couple rounds, because it's absolutely beautiful. And today might not be the day, but tomorrow's going to be a lot better. The other big improvement on the operational side is we unfortunately lost Teresa Travatello back last fall, who had been with the association for a very long time and was doing a great job with the marketing department, but with the chance to look at a new direction. I conducted an extensive search of the Eastern Shore here to find the best fit to take over our marketing program, and we decided to take a whole new look at the department. And under Teresa had multiple assistants, and it was a very fragmented marketing plan. Recreation and Parks was doing their own marketing, golf was doing their own, and Teresa was filling in a lot of the pieces. She had a part-time assistant. And looking at a lot of people working independently, we felt it was really best to try and bring everything together. And to take the lead, we brought in Denise Sorter, who was very well known here on the shore for her both radio and TV roles, and she's, I think, done a phenomenal job in helping to get information out to the association. I mean, she's been a valuable addition to the operational team, and I'm sure John's going to be very happy to have her support when he starts out here, because communication, I believe, is one of the key elements where we still have a lot of room for improvement, but we have a great team behind us to help get us there. In bringing in Denise, we also decided to take all those other positions and give Denise a partner that could really roll everything up, and that would leave Denise a strong footing. So we reworked an existing asset. Julie Malinowski took on a full-time role from what was a part-time fragmented role to back up Denise and to really bring marketing full circle under one roof, one department, so we had consistent communications across all the associations. So I think that's a very notable improvement, and it does take time for those programs to mature and to be fully visible, but Denise has definitely started out on a very strong foot there, and we're excited to see what the next year brings for her and her team. I guess on the last note, I know, as I say, communications are constantly a struggle here, and both to the community, to Mr. Bailey as the new GM, and to the new board, whoever that might be made up of. If you look at all the positive accomplishments of this board and what I just outlined is the GM, those accomplishments came out of effective communications between the board and the operational team, and we had a very good run for a long time where there was very good communications there, and we've had some struggles now of late in maintaining that communications at the executive level, and I hope, I hope to bring into this new board kind of a refreshed look at those communications, and the hope that we can support Mr. Bailey as a board as an entirety, work together and come to compromise and solutions for the community rather than infighting and disagreements, so we can have a continued positive influence moving forward.
Old business on the agenda, nor in the notification of the meeting is there any new business. Well, I want to go directly to the election committee report. Steve Tuttle and the election committee.
Envelope. I want to give you just a couple of comments about the whole process that I think you'll find interesting. There were over 7,400 ballots that were mailed to association members. The total number of ballots that we counted was 3,491. Okay. There were 40 ballots that people marked 3 candidates. Oh my gosh. Okay, that invalidates their ballot right away. So there are a number of things that I just want to encourage us as an association, read the instructions, follow them, and vote appropriately. I'm going to read off the names of the 4 candidates and the totals that they received. Starting with the 4th, which was Nicole, 1,407 votes. Number 3 was Martin Clark, 1,579 votes. Number 2, Colette Horn, 1,647 votes. That leaves Doug Parks as number 1 at 1,912 votes.
Okay, we've now moved into the public comments part of the meeting. I would encourage the speakers to address the membership and to try and keep your comments to the usual 5 minutes. Sarah, back there.
My name is Ted Arano. Know that. 51 Quarterstaff Place. I now like to say Berlin, Maryland, but now that the board is trying to change it, I'll just go back to Ocean Pines, Maryland, 21811. Too many questions about what's going on in Ocean Pines, so I've been using Berlin to my friends and neighbors. Congratulations to you, congratulations to Mr. Park. The motion that I proposed, down, I'll just read it in general comments. Why and what I did, if that's permission. Mr. Stevens, may I say what I want to say?
It's public comments and it's a members' meeting, so you certainly may.
All right, come on. Keep the clock running for a second. I have to tell you, there's a couple of things that really I would have addressed a few weeks ago, but unfortunately my wife has come down with cancer. I was not able to come here. So I would like to read what I would have said at the previous meeting. And we'll forget about my motion. I feel I should have, hearing me just one minute. But no, I'm going to read it because I took time to do it. Anyway, the reason my motion was to terminate Red Hill from the position of acting general manager effective today and appoint Colby Phillips as interim JM until Mr. Bailey was hired is because, before Mr. Bailey's ready to take over his duties. Mr. Hill's recent management performance and many of his controversial staffing decisions created a hostile workplace and sizable financial losses to the association. The association membership will no longer tolerate the refusal of some of the directors to take long overdue disciplinary actions. Removing Red Hill from acting general manager, I felt was required to, so we didn't have any more problems in the next 2 weeks. I talked to a lot of people, and they took the attitude, well, what damage can be done in 2 weeks? Look what's going on over in North Korea. Who knows what will happen in 2 weeks? Now, the letter, the comments I was going to make prior to the last meeting, which, like I said, unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend. So some of it, not really applicable. But what I was going to say is my name's Ted Aaron, where I live, my phone number, and I do return all calls. And I'll give you my number, 301-919-9879. Be willing to talk to anybody. I was here to oppose what Mr. Hill and the board is trying to do to Mr. Trendick, who in the last election received the second most votes. And by the way, I've also noticed that in a poll conducted by, this is not in here, this is Simstis, in a poll conducted by the Ocean Pines Forum, 86% of the people favor Mr. Trendick staying. 14% suggest that he leaves. So I'm a member of the board, and the board is elected to represent the association. I think they should consider that. Okay. So let me move on. What's that? Oh, I'm running out of time. All right, I'm sorry. Since we can't, okay, one other thing real quick. I'm going to skip a lot of this stuff. The Ocean Pines pool, they didn't do their homework. I called Columbia Association, they have 23 pools, they have people, they have set aside hours for adults. Okay. One thing that really upsets me, and I may go over about 10 seconds, I hope you allow it. I made numerous calls to members of the board. Mr. Jacobs returned my call. Mr. Herrick returned my call. Mr. Trendick returned my call. 5 calls were made to Mr. Hill at his house. A lot of people were not happy that I called his house because why would you bother a man? Well, if you read the quarterly magazines that he has posted, I'm finishing now, in his comments in the quarterly magazines, let me find it as a quote. Here, this is a quote. As always, please feel free to reach out to me should you have any additional questions or concerns. I had plenty of questions. I had plenty of concerns. This was in volume 49 of the quarterly you get. If you want to check it, his comments, number 1, 2, and 3. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Debbie Bloom, 65 Martin Circle, and I have a question, and I don't know when I should have asked this. We have really bad internet service. I mean, it's awful. I came from a place where I had fiber optics, and I loved it. I felt like I went back to the 1900s or whatever it was. Can we get that as a budget item, or explain to us why Mediacom is our person that we need to have? I just really don't understand. I heard that we're in some kind of lease with them, but we need to get it broken, we need to get a new person. Brett, I love your company. I don't even know you, but we need fiber optics here. I can't even imagine trying to run a business here. We've got to look out what the place is going to be.
Kevin Glenn, 2 Dove Lane. It's short and sweet. I will say we appreciate the board members. It is a volunteer position. We should all appreciate it. But that being said, we need to touch on the infighting with the board needs to be addressed. It needs to be taken care of. The board is here for the people. I stand by that. The board needs to get along. They need to figure it out. And they need to be here for the people of this community. There's 8,500 homes in this community. I bought here 7 years ago. There's going to be things the board likes that we do. There's going to be things that we don't like. If they get along and they present it in a way, we can all figure it out together. Going from there, the yacht club, we need to figure that out. We can't continue to keep losing money at the yacht club. The golf course, second to that, aquatics used to make money. It doesn't make money now. I don't know all the numbers. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to get into all that. These things need to be fixed. We can't keep paying assessments for these things to continue. I bought here as a second home to retire here. It's not working. I almost regret doing this. Watching the infighting, playing these games, who likes who doesn't like who, and keep losing money. We don't need to make money, we need to break even. Let everybody enjoy the amenities. Give the yacht club away. I'll start by saying that. Let somebody run the yacht club other than this place. There's nobody in here that has knowledge of running a restaurant that I know of. Give it to somebody to run, break even. If they make money, take 5% off the top. Do something. That's all.
Let me iterate on the yacht club. I came here in 1977, and I took Fridays off for 8 or 9 years straight while my wife came down with the 3 boys. And I would get down here about 10 o'clock at night and get over to the yacht club on a Thursday night, and it was packed. They had a band playing. If you didn't get there by a certain time, they didn't have the big menu selection. The hamburgers were great. Everything was fine. I guess it was making money back then. The problem today, well, I'll go back then. If I didn't want to eat at the yacht club, I had to go down to West Ocean City to eat. Now we have 13 restaurants at our gate. And you're going to compete with owners. I mean, try to compete with an owner of a restaurant. That was impossible. Government can't compete with private enterprise. And I suggest the yacht club closed down, put it in mothballs for the winter. No. Put it in mothballs, because you're going to lose bundles. No. You're going to lose a lot of money over the winter. Just an operation. I mean, you lose money in June, July, and August. Come on. Just imagine how much you're going to lose, November, January, February, March.
Exactly.
Gary Figallo, 42 Wood Duck Drive. Live in Wood Duck 1, live on the water, got a bulkhead. I wonder if the board would entertain the idea of convening a meeting specifically about the bulkhead replacement program, so that those on the waterfront could learn more about what the program is, when their bulkhead is scheduled to be replaced, what the new contractor is going to use for his bulkhead system, and bring us all into the today, what's going on.
Sharon O'Hare, 216 Mumford's Landing. First of all, congratulations, Colette and Doug. We're really pleased. Stand back further, okay. I've been on this board, and I thank all the board people who have worked. It is not an easy job. And I appreciate that you people stood up and the other candidates stood up and tried to make this better. The only thing I ask is right now, in the next couple hours, from experience I know, that there's going to be some juggling back and forth among the board members as to who's going to lead this association. And that's a very important position. And I really hope that the board members put all their differences aside, and there have been plenty, and we all know, and think about what's right for the association. You need a mediator up there. You need someone who will listen to both sides, who will keep the conversations open and respectful of each other. There's been way too much nastiness, way too much heartache, and it's hurting all of us. So please, as a board, please try to work together. If you don't, this new GM won't have a chance. I've said that before, and I think we all agree. We've got to give this guy a chance. He needs to sit with you, come up with what you think your values and your ideas and dreams are, and let him do his job. So thanks very much, congratulations, and please think wisely.
Up here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, my name is Mary Callan. I'm really nervous because I have lived here, how many weeks now? I don't even know. So I am brand spanking new. I'm at 90 Clubhouse Drive. I've been listening to everybody. I am a food and hospitality professional for over 25 years. I have called several members of the board to call me back because I am willing to help in any way I can. I have much success rate in restaurants, catering, so on and so forth. And I certainly don't want to live in Ocean Pines knowing that that's the area that's failing. So please call me back so I can help. Thank you.
Up here.
Pete Comstock, Blue Water Court. Pete Comstock, Blue Water Court. I just want to respond for a moment to the gentleman's comment about the yacht club. Certainly, I support everybody else here who says we have got to improve that facility. We have to improve the food and beverage operations, service food, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. However, with respect to the dollars and cents of it, let's keep the bigger picture in mind. Yes, we have to make improvements. Yes, we've got to do a number of things. But put it in perspective, the handouts that you have, the green sheet, and John Viola spoke to this earlier as part of his presentation. The yacht club was this year budgeted, this past year, budgeted to make $4 per member. In fact, it lost money, as we all know. Here's what I want you to remember. It lost $27 of your money, $1 a month. It cost every member of the association for the losses incurred by the yacht club this past year. $1 per month, total of $27. We have to improve things, but please keep it in perspective. $27, $1 a month. Yeah, $27 a year, sir.
It's $2 a month.
Marlene Ott, 1 Warbler Court. This is my 47th or 48th community annual meeting. I came here when this was a dirt road into the woods. It is a marvelous community. My profession is a real estate agent. There are several of my colleagues here, Mr. Rhines, Mr. O'Hare, and if I missed somebody, I apologize. But Ocean Pines is doing really, really well. Our market is dynamic, it's growing, it's appreciating. It's a marvelous place to live. And when I take people around and show them all of these amenities and tell them about a private beach club in Ocean City, which nobody has and nobody will ever have, and all of dog parks and playgrounds and you just name it, everybody goes, wow. So, you know, be our best public relations, as everybody is, I think, as owners in Ocean Pines. We're doing really well. And just keep everybody, it's because people really care in this community, and I've always said that. Keep caring, keep helping the people that are in the leadership roles, and keep coming back.
So I'm a little bit surprised, but I'm Dutch Oostveen, 12th Lord Guard. The first thing I want to thank Mr. Stevens. He has done a tremendous time for Ocean Pine, even after his wife passed away. And before I start to say, I'm not going to say much wrong. We have a president, he made a statement, make America great again. I want to win the first prize here in Ocean Pine. I say, let us make Ocean Pine great again. We have a good community. We have a good board. Unfortunately, I have worked hard for 2 particular people. I'm a little bit disappointed what happened, but I will tell this. I have fired a person for the election. She sent the police to my house for interfering with her election. I'm very disappointed. Is that person in the board, if we speak up, call every time the police? What we need in Ocean Pine, people with a background in business. We don't need people who run a hospital. Is Ocean Pine a hospital that we need doctors to tell us how to run the yacht club? I think that is ridiculous. We need people. We got a lot of good people in Ocean Pine. Good. Well, boo me out. Boo me out.
Please,
boo me out.
please. Look,
boo me out.
we don't want to end this meeting and let Dutch talk.
I got a right to speak up. This lady made me stopping from speaking up to her, and I'm not in favor of it. That's what I'm saying. my father and myself, we killed hogs. I'm a heart doctor. Did we need a heart doctor to tell us how to run Ocean Pine? Anyway, we had a good board. There is a squab in the board between a couple people. All these people are good people. Sure, our general manager had done some things wrong. He had done a lot of things right. The same thing with Mr. Sloverman. Sure, he has done things wrong, but he's a good person. I'm not in the board to cut these two people out. I just vote for the board. And I can tell you, I don't care what the mistake, Tom Harris had done an outstanding job. I hate to see him gone. But there are people, there's one particular person have wrote very bad letters about this board. And last month he was in a meeting too, Mr. Stevens tried to stop him. He had done a lot of damage to Ocean Pine. And we have, that's what I'm saying, we need people with a background, with a business background to run Ocean Pine. I can tell you one trouble. Last month in the meeting, our general manager brought up from Public Works about the lawnmower. These people in Public Works are professional people. They're not scared people. They know what they're doing. We got one board member talk 20 minutes. Can we not put a screw here and a screw there? If these people saying that thing is broken, it is broken. Don't argue. Just vote yes or no. And there's another thing about the pool for the senior citizen. We got kids in the swimming pool around the bar. There was a certain person here in Ocean Pine that wanted their kids in the pool. And probably they went to the general manager. He checked into it. We are a home association. Everybody is equal. I don't think that was Mr. Hill's fault that we got the kids in the pool. I feel sorry for the senior ladies. But we have to live by the law. This is what's going on. We need good people in the Pines. Yeah, okay, you told me. All right, thank you. But that is my opinion.
I'm Marion McCurdy, Portside Court, and I just wanted to address that gentleman that wants to close it during the winter. I feel that if it's run properly all summer long, that should carry us into the winter. Okay? I hope everybody agrees.
I don't see any other hands, so if there are no, I'll close public comments.
I mean, you have 2 good months, July and August, or June, a lot of rain, a lot of outside. I've gone down to the yacht club. I sit outside and listen to music. I buy a few drinks. Last week, I think I bought too many. But I see a lot of people that come to the yacht club, sit outside, and they just sit there. They don't order anything. They don't drink anything. They just sit there and listen to music. I mean, you're going to have to figure out a way to make money. And the problem is, you got all these restaurants right at the gate. You know, they weren't there in 1977.
If I may, yeah, you've already spoken. We don't have debates. And listen, I've heard this debate. I've heard it for the last 10 years. And I can guarantee you that we won't resolve it in this meeting. I like to talk about it, but not here. Please. Bill.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill. Do I have a second? The meeting is adjourned.